This podcast is brought to you by the Islamic Center and NYU. For more information, visit our website at www.icnyu.org.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, it is a pleasure to be with you again after not having been with you for so long. Subhanallah. I just want to say to everyone, I pray that your Eid was wonderful. Kula am wa antum bi khair. That Allah Azza wa Jal will continue to bless your year, inshallah, to be one of prosperity, to be one where the blessings of Ramadan continue to shower upon you for all the remaining days. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's start, inshallah, with our intention is how we normally start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I repeat after me, inshallah. I intend to learn and to teach, to benefit and to be benefited, to remind and to be reminded, to call to the book of Allah and the sunnah of his messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to guide and to be guided by sound proof and correct knowledge, to seek the countenance of my Lord, nearness to him and his reward. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us that this class may be a means by which we intend to expose ourselves to the mercy of Allah, to expose our minds to his expansion and our hearts to his rectification. We're here by the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would elevate us, that he would increase us in knowledge and benefit, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make us amongst those that he loves, that Allah Azza wa Jal would make knowledge a means by which we increase in nearness to him, by which we increase in correct and sound ibadah, by which we increase in wisdom. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless these classes to be a means by which we earn his pleasure, that we are granted his nadar of rida, and that we are granted his complete and perfect pardon, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow us to enter into Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. Allahumma ameen. Bismillah Rabbi ishrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. There are so many, subhanallah, things that I want, inshallah, for us to catch up on that we have during this time. That these days, subhanAllah, before Ramadan, we were covering the stories, the qisas al-anbiya, the stories of the prophets. And subhanAllah, these stories are something by which we're able to derive very real life lessons in our own daily lives, as well as in the society that we derive from these 25 prophets that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in the Quran. As we know, the role of the Anbiya, the role of the prophets is to connect the creation to the creator. That the role of them is to show us signs and symbols in not only in the universe, but inside of our own selves, so that we may be guided aright to Allah. And also that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he's telling us these stories, that we're able to draw upon parallels between our own life and particularly in our own societies, so that we may know which way we should turn, which way that we should go, subhanallah. And there's so many that as we talk about the stories of the Anbiya, there are so many opportunities, like I said, not only for reflection, but also to become nearer and closer to Allah, to begin to understand what is the sunnah of Allah, meaning what is the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. What are the ways by which he shows us himself, by the ways by which he teaches us exactly how to have a sound relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so with that being said, inshallah, I'd like for us to be able to continue on that path. And when we look at the next prophet that we, after we've been going down the line, and I think we finished, and someone correct me who was in the class, from my understanding is that the last class we had on the Anbiya was the story of Prophet Saleh alayhi salam, and the story of the camel, where the she-camel was a miracle from Allah Azza wa Jal. But subhanallah, they did not obey Allah subhanahu after asking Allah for the miracle, that they then were not responsible when Allah granted them this gigantic, subhanallah, miracle of the she-camel that came out of the mountain, they then began to complain, right, about the camel itself. And subhanAllah, even after Shu'aib warned them, after Prophet Saleh alayhi salam warned them, right, they continued. There were a group of them, a band of them that continued in their transgressions internally until they convinced each other. They talked each other up in order to eventually kill the she camel. And subhanAllah, this became a means of their own destruction, right? And that how many times has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us signs after we've asked Allah to guide us, and then he would show us signs, and then subhanAllah, we would express a high level of ingratitude for even the miracle that once he actually gave us the signs and taught us what to do, right? After we said, if you give me this sign, then I will be guided aright, right? If you give me this sign, then I'll worship you. If you give me this sign, then Allah sends the sign, he sends the miracle, and then that we transgress against the miracle. So of course, that becomes something that becomes a means by which we have to be able to start to examine our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that being said, I want us to move on to after, it's very interesting that the days of Ramadan as well as the days of Eid teach us lessons about spiritual math. And spiritual math is that sometimes we look at math as something separate from our deen, when in reality, spiritual math, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Ma'ana in the Quran, that he wishes for us to complete the days. All right. And so in wishing for us to complete the days, meaning if they're 29 or 30 days, that the fasting has a number that is attached to it. The day of Eid has a timing that is attached to it. And there's certain raka'at, right? There are 2 raka'at that are specific to the day of Eid, that there is a number, a percentage. And I want you to hear what I'm saying as it relates to numbers, as it relates to amounts, as it relates to time, and then as it relates to percentages that we then calculate in order to express a level of gratitude and worship and reverence for Allah Azza wa Jal. That spiritual math can also be connected to our spiritual relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help in order to teach the blessed lessons that he has given us in the best manner. And so with that being said, we go to our Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, and our Prophet Shu'aib, literally, when I think about him, he is a prophet that has to do with spiritual math. That in what we began to see is that sometimes we associate religiosity with prayer, or even with fasting, or we associate it with recitation of Quran. We associate it with things that actually are more connected to the self, right? That even to the point that we look at religion as something that is very personal. And I think about one of the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal allowed me to witness is that Deen in Islam actually teaches us something separate than that, something greater than that, something more magnificent than that, in the recognition that religion is not a personal matter. Now, someone, on the other hand, might see that as something negative. But subhanAllah, if we recognize that religion is not a selfish matter, that religion is something that connects, it should, of course, connect our hearts, not only on a vertical relationship between the creator and the creation and the creator, but also on a horizontal level by which it should change our relationship with people. That when there isn't a matter in the life of the believer, in the life of the Muslim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not present. There isn't an aspect of our life that Allah Azza wa Jal is not the governor of that he is the governor of all of our affairs. We are not the people who say, right, as the people of Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, they said, what does our business have to do with your prayer, right? Or the opposite, what does our prayer have to do with this business, right? Like I can meaning that there are people who are saying, I can be prayerful, I could be a religious person, and yet I could cheat the people. And so for the believer, for the believer, what we understand is no, that this relationship has an overarching station over all aspects of our life, that we are not the people who actually separate the sacred from the secular, that even that which we acknowledge about the sacred, even the Quran and the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi is something that governs even something as what would be considered as worldly as our financial affairs. Even there are laws that conduct how we interact with business, how we transact business, how we even deal with banking, how we then distribute money, even has its rules and regulations, subhanAllah. So with that said, inshallah, I want to pull up a particular verse, bi'idhnillah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just so that everyone can see, astaghfirullah. There we go. That inside of the Arab prophets, right, the Arab Anbiya, because many of them are not actually mentioned, are not mentioned in terms of their lineage, but we're able to trace their lineage based upon where they were born. And so the case with Shu'aib is that he was what's called an ancient Midianite, right? So in the Bible, he's called Jethro. His story is Jethro. Now, this is the one that is most connected to him. This is the one that's most connected to him, subhanAllah, in terms of how they're able to connect. And so, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Mawlana Habibina Muhammad. And going through his story as that Prophet Shu'aib was sent to a people who literally, that we don't know much about his younger life. What we know more about is that subhanAllah, are the reactions or the interactions that he had with his people. And they had, subhanAllah, three main aspects. Number one is that they used to rob the people, right? They used to rob the people, meaning those who were their sins. Like each prophet's people have I guess more or less we consider a main lesson, or a main sin or main transgression for which that prophet is sent in order to rectify. Now, there are other aspects, because ultimately the root of sin and transgression is rooted in our understanding or misunderstanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the case of Prophet Shu'aib, their thing is, we believe in Allah, but also we rob people who are on the highways, right? We rob them and we take money from them. And in addition to, they used to take taxes from those who are just traveling along the way. There's a deep sense of an ownership over certain parts of the earth, right? Which will put our case into shame, which will put our case, if we were to look at it, into shame in terms of how we, anyone is subject to taxation on the road in our life. Allahumma musta'an. And so this was one aspect. This was one of their transgressions. Another aspect of their transgression is that they were the people, subhanAllah, they were a people who not only would rob, so these are two different. One, they would rob people. Number two, they would charge taxes for the one who is a foreigner, and then or traveling along the way, a wayfarer. But then on top of that, they would cheat in their transactions. So in cheating, it may be in cheating that they would add more weight, right? So they're claiming that when they would, do a balance at this much kilograms, that they would put something or that was already had a certain weight as they're putting it on. So it seems like it weighs more than it actually does, and as a result, they're charging people more money, right? They're charging people more money. And this is something that for the most part, they felt that there is no sin or transgression in that. And so subhanAllah, Prophet Shu'aib was sent, right, to tell them, no, there is major transgression in this. Right? That your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not negate you or nullify your responsibility to be just and fair with the people.
وإلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره قد جاءتكم بينة من ربكم فأوفوا الكيل والميزان ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين ولا تقعدوا بكل صراط توعدون وتصدون عن سبيل الله من آمن به وتبغونها عوجا واذكروا إذ كنتم قليلا فكثركم وانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المفسدين.
And so I'll read the translation, and it says, and to the people of Midian, we sent their brother Shu'aib. He said, "O my people, worship Allah. You have no other God except him, a clear proof that has already come to you from your Lord. So give just measure and wait, and do not defraud people of their property, nor spread corruption in the land after it has been set in order. This is for your own good, if you are truly believers. And do not lie on every road. Do not lie in ambush on every road, threatening and hindering those who believe in Allah from his path and striving to make it appear crooked. Remember when you were few, then he increased you in number, and consider the fate of the corruptors." So in this, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal is first telling them, listen, the first thing is that you have got to rectify your relationship with Allah. Right? Like he is, Allah Azza wa Jal is literally saying to them, the biggest problem, the biggest challenge that you're having is that, first, you've got to get your tawheed correct. You've got to get your aqidah straight. So that once you change this, once you change your understanding of Allah, that Allah is the governor of your affairs, it should begin to change your global view. It should begin to create some deep change inside of you where you recognize that cheating is not okay, that defrauding people is not okay. Now, of course, there are many examples for where this would be applicable to our American life. Everything from what we see about, let's say, major oil companies, or things that we see, insurance frauds that are put upon people, or even as it relates to certain, we'll just call it real estate fraud, right? Where we kind of, there's like a loaning where we wrangle people in to certain loans that they cannot afford, right? To basically almost betting on them, right? Betting that they will actually default on their loan, so then their property can be taken back. Even, right, if they paid half, more than half, 3/4 of it, if they miss that, 2 or 3 payments, meaning even after paying 3, 4, 5, 10 years, sometimes 30 years, it happened in America, that someone could have been paying on a particular property, right? And then with the moment that they're not able to pay, even though they may have paid for that house 2 times, 3 times, but the moment that they're not able to pay a certain tax, or the moment they default on maybe 2 or 3 payments, and it's as if they didn't have any ownership over that property. And then it's taken from them and they sell it to someone else, right? Sometimes even for a higher price for the same property, leaving that person then with nothing. Even though what was the original price, they paid it. But so much has gone into usury, or so much has gone into all these other fees that are calculated, right? That ultimately is about defrauding the people of their actually hard-earned money. We see this scam happen so many times with elderly people in America. We see this happen even with poor people. We see this happen in credit games that are played upon people. And so what does it do? It creates a corruption in the land. Because what it does is this level of trickery not only causes people to lose hope in the system, right? But it causes this in and of itself is a cause for rise in homelessness, which becomes a means for rise in crime. Because people can't afford certain things and they feel hopeless in other ways. Now, I'm not justifying crime. I'm simply talking about when we have these kind of financial defrauding or this kind of financial problems. The reality of it is, subhanAllah, is that it becomes a means of corruption upon the land. It becomes a means of harm. It becomes a means of harm. And so Allah Azza wa Jal, and this in Surah Al-Araf, in Surah 7, right? In these verses, he's saying, listen, you gotta fear Allah. That money cannot be your main goal. It can't be your the only thing that you're after in life. You have to be after the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. You have to be after the home of the hereafter. You have to have that with Allah comes even financial ethics. And you definitely, right, this concept of cheating people, even in Allah addresses, I want us to see that Allah is addressing almost not just 3 aspects of financial defrauding, but I would consider them 3 levels, right? So the most base level is Allah's talking, he talks about,
next,
robbing.
You want to probably have chicken.
Assalamu alaikum. Somebody is... let me see if I can mute you. Subhanallah. Let me mute all of you so that I'm not hearing all of the details of your life as you're telling us what you're having for dinner. Allah bless you. The next thing is that subhanallah, in this, Allah is giving us a warning. Allah is giving us a warning as he's describing these 3 levels. But interestingly enough, they're in the same category of people for Allah Azza wa Jal. And I want us to understand that these might be what we would consider petty crime, right? Would be highway robbery. Some might think that, in depending on the level, it might become grand theft. But this is considered a petty thief. This is considered someone on the level, someone who's robbing people. So that we would look down on them. So, these are thugs, these are criminals. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the next level of people. Those of you who have your own businesses and are defrauding people in business because you're cheating based upon a cost, or you're cheating saying, well, the market is, the retail, the market price or the manufacturing price is this. So therefore I must raise the price to this. When in reality, that's not the case. And then, so this is, he's talking about cheating people on this level, similar to the time of Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala an, when he became the Khalifa and he was patrolling the streets. And he heard this beautiful story between a daughter and her mother, when the mother was selling, they were selling milk. And they, they had fallen on hard times. And as they had fallen on hard times, the mother suggested to the daughter, let's cut the milk with water. So if we cut the milk with water, then of course it would increase its amount and we would sell more containers and we would make more money. And so the daughter is warning the mother, this is not acceptable, right? She doesn't know that Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Amir al-Mu'mineen, can hear this conversation. And so the mother is encouraging the daughter towards this type of fraud. Merchant fraud, business fraud. Cut the oil, cut the milk, cut whatever it is. Whether it's at the gas station, right? Or in produce. And so subhanAllah, she's encouraging the daughter to do this, and the daughter says, listen, the mother's like, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he can't see us. Umar ibn Khattab, he can't see us. Allah can see us, mama. Mama, Allah can see us. That even if we don't get caught in this life, right, we're going to get caught in the hereafter. Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to ask us about this kind of cheating. He's addressing this level. Then he addresses the high level. You're defrauding people. Right? These, like I said, these are the insurance. This is the insurance fraud. This is the high hegemony funds, right? Hedge funds. These are like higher levels of financial fraud. Literally causing people to fall into deep destruction and ultimately driving the society into deep pain, which then becomes how the aspects of maqasid sharia, the aspects of the aims and objectives of Islamic law become compromised. Right? The compromise of the preservation of property, the preservation of wealth. This is one of the aims and the goals and the purposes that Islam came for. Islam is not a religion of this like spirituality. I pray, I fast, and Allah doesn't care what else or doesn't care about how I make my money. When in reality, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us that there are three types of people that Allah does not answer their dua. The one whose food is not halal. The one whose clothing is not halal. And the one whose earning is not halal. These type of people, Allah refuses their dua. Allah is saying, listen, if you have a true relationship with me, then you have a sound and just relationship with the people financially. That I govern that too. Allah Azza wa Jalla is calling us all to a higher standard, to a higher social standard, a higher financial standard, by which then people are actually able to live a true dream. Like they're able to work hard and see their money grow and build a house and have a family and have a home, but not from haram money. Not from haram money. And so this was the case of the people of Shu'aib, is that he was sent to them to try his best to rectify their affair, right? These three levels. And Allah literally is telling us what's going to happen, right? If you're not fair in this way, and you're not fair, if you have robbery, if you have this kind of crime, you're going to have loss of life. If you have, and he says, if you don't give just measure and weight, and you fraud people of their property, right? That spreads corruption in the land, right? And Allah said, like, set it in order, set it straight. This is for your own good if you are truly believers. So Allah Azza wa Jal makes it one of the conditions of having sound iman, right? Of having sound iman. It's like remove this crookedness, remove this crookedness. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he reminds us of something. He gives us a dhikr to be grateful for, right? فَأَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَقِيبَةُ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Right? Like first he's like, listen, don't forget, like you were few and then Allah increased you. What is he teaching us in this, right? That before this in the ayah, what is he teaching us? He's saying, you were a few people and I made you many people. If you have a little money, I could increase your money. If I can do it for people, I can definitely do it for wealth. Small. Right? Allahu al-Razaq. Allah is the provider. Allah al-Kareem, he's the generous. Allah gives himself two names, Al-Ghani wal-Mughni, that he is the rich and the enricher. He's not just the wealthy, but he's the one who gives wealth. Allah is teaching, cheating will not increase your wealth. it's going to create problems for yourself and for your community. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching us about this, subhanAllah, right? That these three levels are going to be something that are going to be a means of destruction for us on small levels as well as on large levels, subhanAllah. Then I want to, inshallah, go into the people when Shu'aib alayhi salam, he goes to the chiefs, right? He goes to them and tries his best to like, listen, you're in a position of leadership. This one becomes scary, right? You're in a position of leadership. You have the ability to correct this. Because what is the chief doing? What does the chief see? Right? What are those who are in positions of power? What do they see? They actually see the problems. They hear the problems of the society. They hear the things that are coming up, right? They're burying, praying over the ones who are dead from the highway robberies. They know what's going on. So Shu'aib alayhi salam, he goes to them, right? He goes to them and says, listen, can you help me with this? Can you help be a means of guidance? Like I really want, if you believe in Allah, right? If you believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, you can be a means of influence to stop this corruption in our land, to stop the murder, to stop the homelessness, right? You can be a means by which you can change this society. But guess what? The chiefs are not interested. Allah says that they were arrogant. Allah says they were arrogant. Why? Why would they be arrogant even though they're the ones who are experiencing and seeing the problems that are happening as a result? They're doing the counseling, they're doing the arbitration, they're burying the bodies. Why would the chiefs be arrogant? Why would the leaders be arrogant? Money, 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 money. Right? Because somebody's bribing them. Because they're getting their pockets fat. Right? Because somebody's paying them. So Allah is also, in the case of Shu'aib, Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, he's giving us a warning. Like, and it's interesting because the chiefs are the ones who make the laws. Right? They'll make the laws saying that if you do this, this is a crime. But you won't get punished if you can pay me a certain amount of money. Allah. I want us to understand, if we don't understand anything else about this Quran and what the Anbiya teaches us, may we get this. There is nothing of our condition, past, present, future, modernity, antiquity, futuristically, that Allah has not addressed in this Quran, that Allah has not spoken to us about, that Allah has not guided us toward or said, this is harmful for you. Let me guide you away from it. That these are not tales of the ancient. These are not bedtime stories. These are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is literally warning everyone, from the petty thief to the head of the hedge fund, to the CFO, to the chief financial officer, to the judges that are paid to turn a blind eye to certain financial crimes. And it's interesting because those that commit financial crimes are like, they're considered white collar crimes. We won't even get into that. Right? You could actually defraud more people, get lesser time. Defraud more people, actually be a cause of crime, be a cause of corruption on the land, but you will get less time, be in a relaxed facility, right? We do something easy, and they'll call it a white collar crime. But Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, listen, you guys are in this together. this corruption, you are the ones that are causing this. And this is what we learn, alhamdulillah, from Prophet Shuaib. I want to go on, inshallah, to it talks about the arrogant chiefs of his people. They then threatened him. They're like, listen, Shuaib, we will certainly, if you don't stop trying to warn us and tell us to stop this, if you don't quit attempting to make us righteous and fair, if you don't stop warning us about our financial transgressions, right? They're like, we're going to kick you out, right? Like, you might lose your life, right? You and your believers, you and the band of people who follow you, we're going to kick you out. We're going to expel you. You're going to be forced out of here. Like, we're going to get you out of here if you don't stop, right? And then they become more arrogant. If you don't return to our way, if you don't think as we think, if you don't believe as we believe, right? If you don't think as we think, if you don't believe as we believe, and if you don't act as we act. And I want us to understand, as Muslims, this is the attack under the believers. This is the attack, 100%. Think as we think, believe as we believe, and act as we act. And if you don't, the threat is deportation or to send you somewhere else, unless you can comply to these things. Deportation, exile, you're going to be out of this beautiful land. That's the threat. You're going to be forced out. That's the threat. Subhanallah, bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim. But, subhanallah, Prophet Shuaib alayhi salam, he recognizes, like, I can't lie against Allah. I'm not going to turn back on this deen. Like, that which is temporary, dunya, money, could never cause me to transgress from my Lord. Everything, Allah Azza wa Jal has encompassed everything, right? Everything in his knowledge. And that he is al-wasi', that my Lord is vast in his knowledge, right? And in him we put in, I love this, right? I love this verse, right? Where it says, like, after he says, like, رَبَّنَا كُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا رَبَّنَا افتح بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ قَوْمِنَا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْفَاتِحِينَ. Right? That, oh Allah, our Lord has encompassed everything in his knowledge. In Allah we put our trust. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا, which I love, right? Because what do we write on the money? We always write on the money, in God we trust. It will be proof against us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And the money, it says, in God we trust. But may Allah save us that our idol is that dollar bill. May Allah save us that our idols are the dollar bill. May Allah save us that our idols are the dollar bill. And that is not in the law we trust, but it's in this green money we trust. And these verses, Allah Azza wa Jalla is challenging us to research our own commitment, our own transactions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from being people who are worthy of punishment. Because in every case, Allah, in every case except the case of Prophet Shuaib, Allah sent the people one punishment. Either he sent them an earthquake, or he sent them like a hurricane, the air, or it said that it was a loud shout, like a loud sound that destroyed them. But in this case, they were given three. The people of Shuaib were given three punishments, right? That it wasn't only the shout, earthquake, right? But Allah said there was a piece of the earth, a piece of the sky would fall down on them. She's like the equivalent basically of a meteorite. Right? Subhanallah, bihamdi, Subhanallah al-Azim. And this is the, this is the case of the people of Shuaib and how Allah Azza wa Jal destroyed them. So in these lessons that we get, we recognize there is no separation between that which is sacred and that which is secular. That our deen has everything to do with our business and money transactions. They are not separate. That Allah is the overarching governor of all of our affairs. That we recognize, subhanAllah, that this transgression, that if we are not a part of the solution, if we're not looking for more ways, right? And this is a responsibility on the believer, especially living we would say, when you are a minority in that land that is not governed by Islam, it becomes incumbent upon us to research, number one, what are the businesses? What is the fiqh of business? Right? We spend 4 years learning about how to earn money, whichever way, sometimes 4, 8, 12 years learning about how to earn money. We could spend a few days or even a few weeks learning the fiqh of business, how to make sure that my Lord is pleased in my transactions and that I'm not doing something that's going to ultimately earn me his displeasure. That's number one. That's the first thing that we're called to. The second thing that we're called to is about how we rank people. This is a deeper challenge to us as believers. How we will, in our own estimation, rank robbers at one level, but leave those who are the big defrauders, who are the causes of crime. We tell them that they're lesser, their crime is lesser, when in reality their crime is not lesser in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then if you do exist, if you are those who are fortunate or blessed or studied or worked hard in order to be in the upper echelon of the financial aspects of society, then you have a higher responsibility to call the laws towards righteousness. That oftentimes we talk about social justice, take it to the streets, but we don't trace the money. We don't trace the money enough. Sometimes we champion causes and we don't trace the money. We don't say who's benefiting, who's financing it, and who's benefiting. This is important because a lot of times we need to investigate our own financial affairs, truly, to investigate their origins. Because we thinking we're fighting for social justice or fighting for certain change, and the people who are funding that particular agenda might be directly connected to big fraud, oil fraud, gas fraud, medical fraud, insurance fraud, residential fraud, real estate fraud. They might, sometimes those big dollars are deeply connected to corruption in the land. And Allah Azza wa Jal is calling us, investigate that. Investigate that. Because the believer has the responsibility to bring mercy, to be a mercy to mankind, to bring light and goodness upon the earth, and to establish the maqasid of Sharia, the preservation of life, of intellect, of deen, right? Of property and wealth and heritage. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
If you would like to listen to more, please donate to www.icnyu.org/donate. For more of our virtual programs, go to www.icnyu.org/classes. If you have any questions, email us at info@icnyu.org.